Wedding photography and videography looks glamorous online. You have golden hour portraits, champagne pops, emotional first looks, perfectly curated Instagram grids, six figure or multi six figure years. It looks like freedom, it looks like creativity, it looks like you're getting paid to capture love stories, but there's a side of this industry that nobody talks about. The part behind the Instagram feed, the part that quietly burns people out, the part that makes people fall out of love with something they used to be obsessed with. And if you've been in this industry for more than a year or two, you've felt it. Maybe you couldn't explain it, maybe you just felt tired or behind or stuck, but you've felt it. So let's talk about it. Wedding photography and videography is one of the only businesses where your revenue is directly tied to your weekends. Think about that. The exact time that everyone else is resting, you're working. Friday, you have rehearsal coverage or travel. Saturday, you have 8 to 12-hour wedding days. Sunday, you're backing up files. You start culling or editing. Maybe you have another shoot. And then Monday hits. And instead of resting, you open up your raw files and you get to work. And this cycle repeats every weekend for months, back to back to back. No real recovery window, no real freedom. And here's the part that people don't talk about. It's not just physical, it's emotional labor. You are on the entire day. You're managing timelines, fixing problems, calming nervous brides, coordinating with planners, directing people who don't want to be directed, reading emotions, anticipating moments. You're performing at a high level for 8 to 12 hours straight, and that's mentally exhausting. Then you go home and the job isn't done. You sit in front of a screen alone for hours, editing, reliving the day, trying to make everything perfect. Burnout doesn't happen because you're weak. It happens because the model is intense. And if the structure doesn't support that intensity, it compounds. The second beast that gets encountered is over editing. This is the silent killer because it feels productive. It feels like you're doing good work, but it's actually destroying your time. Most photographers and videographers don't need 30 or 40 hours to edit a wedding. They think they do, but they really don't. Over editing usually comes from two things: perfectionism and insecurity. You zoom in at 300%, you tweak your skin tones endlessly, you adjust exposure by tiny increments that no one will ever notice, you re-export galleries or films because something just feels off. Not because the client asked, but because you're unsure. And here's the truth. Clients don't see your work the way that you do. They don't pixel peep, they don't compare color profiles. They experience their photos and videos emotionally, but you're editing from a technical angle. And that gap creates inefficiency. So let's do the math. If you spend 40 hours editing a wedding that paid $3,000, you didn't just lose time, you cut your effective income dramatically, and more importantly, you reduced your capacity, which means you need more weddings to hit your income goals, which leads to more editing, which leads to more burnout. Over editing isn't just a time issue, it's a whole business model issue. Third thing is scope creep. This one kills profitability really quietly because it doesn't feel like a big deal in the moment. It sounds like, hey, can you just come to the rehearsal dinner? Or can you just send over the raw files? Can you stay an extra half hour? Can you tweak this one more thing? Each request might be small, it might even be reasonable. And most photographers and videographers say yes because they want to be helpful. They want the good review because they don't want conflict. But here's what actually happens. Every time you say yes without structure, you're training the client. You teach them that boundaries are flexible. You teach them that the agreement is negotiable. You teach them that they control the scope. And once that happens, it compounds. More requests, more revisions, more time, and worst of all, the same pay. Scope creep doesn't destroy your business overnight, it slowly erodes your margin. And by the time you notice, you're doing way more work than you agreed to for the same amount of money. Fourth is clients controlling you. This one is uncomfortable, but it's real, and it's almost always self-inflicted. Clients don't take control because they're bad people. They take control because there's no structure. If you don't set expectations clearly, if you don't define timelines, if you don't lead your sales calls, if you don't establish a process, the client will fill the gap, and humans naturally fill uncertainty with control. So what happens? They send detailed shot lists, they micromanage your timeline, they expect instant responses, they question your process, they push for faster delivery, and it's not because they're difficult, but because the structure just wasn't there. Chaos fills a vacuum, and without structure, you're constantly reacting instead of leading. And when you're reacting, you're stressed, and when you're leading, you're in control. Fifth is inconsistent cash flow, and this is the stress that no one talks about because it's not visible, but it's always there. Here's the thing: wedding photography and videography is seasonal. You might book 3 weddings in 1 week and then go silent for the next 3 or 4 weeks. You might collect all your deposits in January and then see nothing until spring or summer. Revenue spikes and then disappears, and that instability creates pressure because when cash flow feels uncertain, you make emotional decisions. You lower your prices, you accept clients that you shouldn't, you say yes to things you normally wouldn't, and you take on extra work just to feel safe. But over time, this builds a business that feels reactive instead of intentional. Inconsistent pipelines create desperate decisions, and that's what kills long-term growth. So here's the dark truth. Most burnout in the wedding industry is caused by structure. Burnout is a systems problem. Over editing is a systems problem. Scope creep is a boundary systems problem. Client control is a process systems problem. Inconsistent cash flow, that's a pipeline systems problem. It's not random, it's not bad luck, it's design or the lack thereof it. So here's where everything changes, because once you understand that problem is structural, you stop trying to fix it emotionally and you start fixing it operationally. Systems create freedom. When you have clear packages with defined boundaries, a streamlined editing workflow, automated communication, a structured sales process, predictable lead generation, everything changes. You shoot fewer weddings, you edit faster, you control timelines, you choose clients, you stabilize revenue, and most importantly, you get your time back. So let's make this real. Clear packages means not customizing pricing for every client. No constant negotiation, no confusion. Defined boundaries mean coverage hours are fixed, revisions are limited, and deliverables are clear. Editing systems mean you're not starting from scratch every time. You have presets, you have batching, you have time limits. Sales systems means that you control the conversation. You qualify properly and you close confidently. Pipeline systems, that means you don't wonder where your next booking has come from. You know that every week you're gonna get something new in. The industry isn't broken, but most photographers and videographers build it backwards. They focus on photos or videos first and business second, and then they wonder why they're exhausted. Listen, you can love weddings, you can love storytelling, you can love the craft. But if you don't design the business intentionally, the business will design your life for you and it won't ask for permission. If you want to see how to install real structure into your wedding business, positioning, pricing, sales process, predictable pipeline, automation, go to my website, howtosellweddings.com, and watch the training. Because the goal isn't just to book weddings, it's to build a business that doesn't burn you out. Freedom isn't accidental, it's engineered. So if you found this video helpful, please drop it a like, subscribe to the channel if you like all things wedding business related, and I will see you in the next one.